That Hazel's trying to get the fly. That is what it is. It'll be fine. Don't worry. But that's what it was. She's looking for the fly.
What's up, guys? Connor O'Hanlon here for another episode of the Greater Society podcast. And today, yes, we are back. We are better than ever. And yes, I know you can hear me. We are back and better than ever. Last week, of course, reminder, we were off last week because, of course, I had the hearing over the gerrymandered school board map here in Central Bucks. So if you guys would like to go check out what I was up to, you can go to the Central Bucks School Board website and go look at our map to stop the gerrymander that's going on. Tonight, we are going to be joined by a special guest who I'll intro here in a second. And later on in the second half of the show, we will talk about the first Republican debate, which review, I guess, is going to be an absolute mess, I would presume. So, but you guys have to stick around for that. First, joining me, this is the first time we've had a guest in a little bit. It's been probably a couple weeks at least. Joining me tonight is candidate for Attorney General here in the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania, and we will go over the broad history, but former Auditor-General, former state representative, Eugene DePasquale? DePasquale?
DePasquale. DePasquale. Connor, you were so close.
I asked you first, too. Damn it. All right, but Eugene, thank you for joining.
No, thanks, Connor, for having me. Really appreciate it.
Awesome. So, as I said, you have a pretty long history of working in politics, but before we dive into the 2024 campaign, before we dive into all the different history that you've had in politics, I guess tell everybody a little bit about yourself and your background before getting into politics.
Yeah, so I'm a father of two right now. My son is actually he graduated from Lawrence University in Appleton, Wisconsin. He's now a graduate student at Georgetown, works in Washington, D.C. And for the southeastern Pennsylvanians out there, even though I'm a Pittsburgher, trying to keep it fair, my daughter, we just moved her back in. She is starting her junior year at Temple University, and currently I'm teaching at the University of Pittsburgh and also doing I have private legal clients as well. So that's what I'm doing right now. But my political history really starts, with the year of the infamous pay raise in Pennsylvania, which was 2005, which created a whole bunch of openings and vacancies, and the political climate shifted where some upstarts could really run. And in 2006, I ran for the Pennsylvania legislature and won in a seat in York County. And I made a promise in that campaign that I didn't think was going to be that groundbreaking for the rest of my life, but turned out to have some pretty big meaning moving forward. And that is, I promised to post my expenses online if I would get elected. And when I did that, that sort of set me on the trajectory of sort of being the openness and transparency legislator. We helped rewrite the open records law. I was known as having the lowest expenses in the state. I even bought my district office furniture at a yard sale. And so, so I was known as being Mr. Frugal, at least when it came to the expenses under my control. Now, I want to be clear. I was for investing in the environment, for investing in public education, in those type of items. But and it was in 2010, Tom Corbett got elected governor. And when he put in his first budget proposal, which was proposing his sweeping cuts to public education, I basically was sitting there in the floor of the House watching that, saying somebody has to do something, and basically made the decision in short order to run for Auditor General on the idea of, look, we've got to make sure our state government is working better. And so I was elected in 2012, won 2 terms, and a couple of things that I really was known from there. It was my work, my investigation that found the over 3,000 untested rape kits. It was my investigation that found the 58,000 unanswered phone calls to the child abuse hotline. And for people that are familiar with Governor Shapiro recently canceling the contract of Real Alternatives at what I would say sham crisis pregnancy center, that started with my investigation of that operation in 2017, where we exposed the bad information they were giving to women and using our tax dollars to basically try to fund their business operations in Michigan and Indiana. So those were the type of things that I was known for. And in 2020, I decided to, or in 2019, actually, I announced that I was running for Congress against Scott Perry before we really knew what an insurrectionist he was, and came close but didn't pull it off. And while that stung, you have to accept some of life's setbacks. And I stepped away from politics for a little while. Started teaching at University of Pittsburgh, and was able to spend more time with my kids and stuff like that. And but now I know with this challenge that we are now facing, threats to our democracy, threats to reproductive freedom, the Office of the Attorney General clearly is so very critical to the future of our state, and not to be too dramatic, but really to be blunt, for the future of the country as well. So I am stepping back into the fray. I think this is the right office for me. I know I can do a good job, and I know I can win.
Awesome, awesome. That's a great history. Right with the you're getting everything across the Commonwealth. You go from southeast all the way out to Allegheny, everything in between. So let me go back and let's talk about your work as Auditor General. So as an auditor, I have a loose idea of what you what you do, but or what you did.
Right.
Can you just quickly kind of describe what that position did, and then maybe give like an anecdote or two about something that you learned from being in that position?
So you are the chief fiscal watchdog. The Auditor General is the state's chief fiscal watchdog, and your job is basically to make sure that the money of state taxpayers is spent legally. It also, that part was always fulfilled. The part that I added, which was part of the office, but never really the focus of it, which was also effectively spent. So to me, you can spend money legally, but are you being effective in it? And I viewed that as it gave me broader authority to go after programs that, yes, maybe they're spending the money legally, but we're not getting much for that. So I took an expansive view of the office. That's how I got involved in cracking down on the untested rape kits. And even when it came to the school districts auditing their school safety procedures, it ended up where Governor Wolf and I were then co-chairing a school safety task force to make sure that the school safety plans were up to par and that our kids were better protected. And then, auditing all the children youth agencies all over the state. So I took an expansive view of the office. So I did, look, some of it was the traditional role. I found over $2 billion wasted by Harrisburg. That was part of the traditional view of it, but that's something we did. But taking on an organization like Real Alternatives, that would have been seen as not the normal function of the office. But they were getting state tax dollars, and I viewed them right inside of my jurisdiction when I was the Auditor General, and took them on, and eventually we won that battle.
That's great. And obviously, for longtime viewers and listeners of the show, you guys all know friend of the program, Malcolm Kenyatta, is now running for that position in 2024. Yes. So it's crazy to be talking about 2024 a little bit already, but as a local guy, the 2024
For those of us
elections,
running in 2024, it will be here before you know it.
yeah.
You've got a list of 17 million things you're going to do. It's like, how am I going to do that in the next week?
Exactly. Exactly. So I guess from your work, in Harrisburg, how have you seen that things have changed since you started? I mean, I guess you said in 2005. Since then, it's 18 years. How have you seen things change? Whether it's from the outside partisan perspective, or just from like the nitty gritty, actually governing side.
Well, for starters, we are much more divided. That applies both, and that did not just start with Donald Trump. I
Hmm.
mean, I think he capitalized on a lot of seeds that had been planted well before he came on the scene. But we are clearly more divided. in Harrisburg and across Pennsylvania. And I saw that towards the end of my tenure as Auditor General and clearly in my congressional run. I tell this joke, but it's actually happened that, I was on election day in 2020, meeting a voter and he had a penguin hat. And I said, oh, just trying to make conversation, Crosby and Malkin getting a little older. We got to add some speed and youth on the blue line. And this voter looked at me and said, I didn't know a Democrat knew what the blue line was. I'm like, you really didn't think a registered Democrat knew the rules of hockey? Like, I didn't think we were that divided, but clearly, like, it's gotten pretty deep when you think that. But no, the reality is we are much more divided now. But I don't think that's an excuse for us not to try to keep trying to bridge that gap. So, look, there's obviously some people that we may not be able to reach, but I still think at the end of the day, when, if I'm your attorney general, just like when I was your auditor general, I'm the auditor general for all nearly 30. I was the auditor general for nearly all 13 million Pennsylvanians. And if I pull this off and I'm the attorney general for everybody, whether they voted for me or not. I think we just have to keep trying to reach at least people that are willing to try to be reached to try to bring some of us back together again.
Absolutely. So when it comes to running against someone like Scott Perry, what are your takeaways, and like what are maybe some words of wisdom you can pass on to people that are engaged in local politics like myself, or maybe someone listening that maybe wants to run for local office, and let's be honest, maybe they're running against somebody that's in that vein? What would be your words of advice?
First of all, I do believe everyone should run for office at some point in their life. I think even if it is a borough council, township supervisor, and those are all important seats. Yeah, maybe we're not all going to run for president someday, but I do think you learn about your community in a significantly deeper way than you would have otherwise by not running. So I think, sometimes you may have a feel of, oh, everyone in my neighborhood believes X. Then you go out and knock on doors and like going, oh, not everyone on this block believes that. So I think it's just to engage your community and learn about your community, I think is important. Look, running against a Scott Perry for Congress, and who is, as we all know, is an insurrectionist, and when it's one of the most targeted races in the country, that's not the normal experience when you're getting $10 million dumped on your head, in negative advertising. But the one thing I think is important, no matter what level of office you run for, and maybe I'm just sentimental on this. I believe you should have a plan for what you would do if you get elected. You should know what you want to do and why you want to run for it. Then you can make a determination of whether you can win or not. Like, I understand that that's a calculus that a lot of people want to make, but you shouldn't just run for office because you can win. I think you should actually run for office because there's actually something positive you believe you can do with that office for the greater community. Then from there, you make your determination of whether you can win and how to put together a campaign. But to me, I think, whether you can win or not should be later on in the decision. The first thing is, are you actually qualified for the office? And do you have a positive vision for the office on how it could be better utilized for the people of the region, the state, or municipality, whatever it may be?
Absolutely. And obviously Congress is different from Auditor General, which is
Right.
different than Attorney General. So
Right.
let's dive into it. What does the Attorney General do? And I know that seems basic civics, but
Yeah.
let's go from there and then
Yeah.
build from that.
The attorney general is the state's chief law enforcement officer, but that is not just criminal statutes. In fact, that's an important role of the office, but it goes much broader than that. That is defending the state's environmental law, defending the state's consumer laws, making sure that people are protected in more ways than just criminal. Although, again, I want to be clear, that's an important part of this. So, like when the Norfolk Southern train derailment happened,
Yep.
that's something where the attorney general is going to be stepping in to hold Norfolk Southern accountable. That is, one example. The former Attorney General, now Governor Shapiro, what happened with the Catholic Church, and holding, various church officials accountable for abuse of individuals that had been buried for far too long. And even when it came to Governor Corbett, when he was the Attorney General, when it came to holding the legislature accountable for violating various public theft laws. So it runs the full gamut. It defends reproductive freedom. It defends, helps municipal. Here's another example. I know you're dealing with this in the Central Bucks School District. I take the First Amendment very seriously.
Yeah.
So these book bans are absolutely absurd. Well, who's the person that can step in and help fight back against some of those ridiculous book bans? And that's the Attorney General of Pennsylvania.
So you have your eyes on Central Bucks, is what you're saying?
I am noticing some of the activities in Central Bucks, and I mean, but I tell you this, and I tell this story when I'm on the trail. That is, when I was in the sixth grade, I wanted to read the book Cujo. Now, in full disclosure, the book was great, the movie stunk, but the teacher said, "Hey, just make sure your mom's okay with it." So went back. My mom said, "Yeah, I want you to read." You know, she didn't say, "Let's check with the governor on that." I
Yep.
mean, that should be a decision. Yeah, engaging the parents is appropriate. Engaging the governor or is ridiculous. And so, to me, I'm for kids reading, and I said that whether it was my kids when they were younger and now too. So, but that is something I'm certainly aware of that's going on in Central Bucks.
Yeah, it's definitely an issue here, and someone in chat said that the book is always better than the movie. So that may be
I'm not sure
true.
about Star Wars, but we'll debate that later
Yeah,
on.
we maybe we can. I'm reading
But
through the Lord of
Steve,
the Rings right now, so we'll see about that.
anything Stephen King was much better in book than on movie, though. Although Misery is pretty good.
I haven't seen it, but
Yeah.
I'm sure. Um, so let's I guess maybe when we talk, obviously we just elected Governor Shapiro in 2022. He previously served as the Attorney General. Now I'm not trying to get you in trouble here, but maybe what are some things that you might do differently than Governor Shapiro when he was Attorney General, and like maybe what would you kind of adopt in bringing forward from his kind of leadership in that role?
Yeah. So first of all, and you don't run for attorney general without knowing you're going to get into. If I serve 8 years, the idea of not getting into trouble at all during those 8 years, I don't mean me individually, but that's the
Yeah.
job, right? You've got to hold powerful people accountable. That's part of the job. So one thing I certainly come into, look, I think he helped redefine the office in a very good way. So he deserves all the credit in the world for that. And that's one of the reasons why, he's now the governor of the state beyond, just being a very tenacious, smart, diligent public servant. But look, I clearly come into this with a strong energy and environmental background. And that's something that would be a high priority for me. And also, I just think the times are different. If I'm the attorney general, the threats to democracy, look, I think he did a great job in 2020, but I think we're now much more aware that these threats to democracy and voting rights are going to be on a much more sustained attack, and having a plan to push back on that is going to be absolutely critical for myself if I'm the next attorney general. So those are things that are just when just you're looking at the world now. 2024 will just be different than getting elected attorney general in 2016. The threats to democracy are clear, and the final thing that not the final thing that would be different, but Roe being overturned.
Yeah.
Um, the battle for reproductive freedom is clearly going to be moving forward. And in addition to that, with some of the horrible things that, when I say this, stuff that was on the public record from some of the people that were on the, in my view, the wrong side of the Dobbs decision, is that they're not done yet when it comes to, gender equality, when it comes to the LGBTQ community. I've got to be prepared to defend allies across the board in our schools and across our communities, that some of these battles we might have thought were already won. Clearly, they are not.
I got a question in chat that I'm gonna rephrase because I think it's asked a little silly, but and I'm saying that, not you. But I guess with the issue specifically, I mean, crime is actually down this year compared to previous years in
Right.
many places, but with the rise of crime since, let's just say, COVID,
Yeah, right.
how is Attorney General? Let's just use Philadelphia. I mean, I'm wearing my Fell shirt. I go to UPenn.
Yeah.
Like how as Attorney General could you help uh, s- stop, lower, reduce crime, reduce violence
Yeah.
specifically moving forward?
Well, a couple of things. First of all, I've got a daughter at Temple, so this is very personal to me. And I think a couple of things. First of all, you have to develop good relationships with the district attorneys across the state.
Hmm.
Yeah, you have to do your part to make sure that they're getting the resources they need from the attorney general's office, making sure we've got a great team. So that if a various district attorney doesn't have the resources to prosecute someone that's committed horrible acts of violence, making sure that I have the right team in place to hold those people accountable. So that's part of it. There's also the critical nature of, there's too much gun violence. So we've got to find ways to crack down on gun violence. How do you do that? I think we've got to go after a lot of these straw purchasers, the people that are selling these guns illegally to too many people. So sometimes we'll hold the actual assailant accountable, and we should, but we've also got to trace that back to who's selling them the gun
Yep.
and hold that individual accountable too. So I think looking to that point of sale is going to be important. Now, if they didn't break the law, so be it. But a lot of those, you know, a lot of those gun sales are happening legal. We've got to go back to the point of sale as well. So that's something I'm going to take very seriously. There's also another part of my background that I think is important to note. And it's look, I've seen both sides of this criminal justice system. And I think, my dad was actually incarcerated. He was wounded in Vietnam, got addicted to painkillers. Synthetic heroin was prescribed him by the VA, which led to a 30-year battle with addiction. And he eventually was dealing it as a result of that and had a 10 and a half year prison sentence. So many of these, so many, not all, so many of these crimes relate back to the most failed war in the history of the United States, and that's the war on drugs. And so I've seen both sides of this. And again, if you harm a child, if you harm anybody with guns, I want to be clear, violence is, I want to, will always be held accountable. But if you are a nonviolent drug addict, I think we've got to take a different approach on how we're dealing with this because clearly just locking up people that are addicted and throwing away the key has not worked to reduce drug usage. So, and that eventually leads to other crimes. So to me, I think, holding violent criminals accountable, absolutely. But when it comes to nonviolent, particularly on drug offenses, we have to take new approaches to this. We need to get people treatment. And then particularly on the guns, we got to go to the point of sale.
I love hearing that, and you got a few things in chat here saying that, saying thank you for sharing that story. Addiction and failed policy affects everybody, especially veterans. So I think that's a great sentiment, and people are happy for you sharing that, or thankful for you sharing that. And I also have something from Jenny in the chat saying that you get down to the bottom of things, and that she remembers your audit of the Bureau of Dog Law, Department of
Oh,
Ag.
yeah. When I did the spoiler alert is, and I say this, it may sound funny, but if anybody is running for office, spoiler alert, never be anti-dog because you can sort of say horrible things about other human beings and can't get away with saying anything bad about our dogs. Nor should we. But no, I did an audit of the dog law in 2013. And we found that the Department of Ag was not enforcing some of these new laws that were done to crack down on the puppy mills, particularly in Lancaster County and some of these other areas. And so, yeah, I can really get down into the weeds on stuff too, because I think look, here's part of how my part, and people can make this determination whether you want this, in an attorney general or not. It worked for me as auditor general, and I know sometimes you have to have a balance here. But to me, sometimes I hear the phrase "don't sweat the small stuff." No, sometimes that small stuff that the 13 million people actually matters a lot to certain individuals. And so to me, when it came to the dog law, that did seem like in the weeds for maybe the legislature and the broader public, but it really mattered to a lot of folks out there. And so I was more than happy with the result of that audit. I know that it led to significant changes in the Department of Agriculture, more funding for some of the wardens, and now better protection for our dogs and other animals as well.
I don't. That's awesome. I didn't know that, and I didn't know that about you. So that's even better. And people are saying that we need dog lovers in office. So there you go. I
Yeah.
was only laughing because I was thinking of Always Sunny in Philadelphia with bird law. So like
Yeah.
that's
Yeah,
I
I
was.
actually got my start in the animal rights part of this as a legislator,
Oh
although
yeah.
this is much different. And that was not only did I support right away improving our dog law, but I actually worked with someone who eventually became my opponent in the Auditor-General race. And that was former state legislator John Marr, and we're still friends to this day on ending those horrific pigeon shoots,
Mm.
um, where there was a portion of Pennsylvania called Higgins, where they would have these horrific pigeon shoots. And again, I know some people go, I don't love pigeons. Well, if you'd have seen videos of how the shooting coming in, breaking the necks of these birds, and it just, to me, it's, how we treat the less powerful, whether it be a person or an animal, says a lot about how we are as a society.
Couldn't agree more with that. Um, when it comes to, well, I have another question in the chat, but I'm going to ask that towards the end. But when it comes to setting yourself apart, I mean, you've obviously laid out your case. You've laid out your case like pretty, I would say, pretty convincingly and pretty well. Your history speaks for itself. If there's one thing that sets you apart amongst the, I mean, you're in a primary field.
Yeah.
Let's just say right now for the primary,
Yeah.
the running against a Republican is what it is. Like that's just
Right.
going to be what it is. But in the primary field, besides what we've already established, because obviously, like I said, it speaks for itself. It's an incredible history. Uh, what is something that sets you apart amongst the field?
I think there's two things that set me apart. Again, we're going to be a lot of good people, and the voters are going to make their choice.
Mhm.
But two things I believe set me apart. And one is I have a record of protecting Pennsylvanians in every single corner of our state. There isn't a single part of our state that my work hasn't had a positive impact on. And that's something no one else can say. And the second part is, to be blunt, this is political. You have to win to be able to govern. And I'm the only one that can say I've won two statewide elections. I'm the only one that can do that and was reelected in 2016, despite the fact Donald Trump won the state, running nearly 7 points above the top of the ticket. Now, I wanted Hillary to win that year, don't get me wrong, but I also show that I can get those votes in every single part of the state. And so those two things I think set me apart.
That's great. And just so you ran in 2016 for Auditor General as your reelection, right? So that would
Yes,
mean in 20
correct.
so 2012 was the original as well. So
That's correct.
two
Yes.
two not great years for Democrats.
No, and while 2012 was
It was
better than
better, yeah.
2016, but neither one of them, like I have never had that year of, I sort of, consider it maybe bad timing politically. I've never picked that year to run like 2008 or 2018, where that wave just carried you through. I was always slugging it through it, but so be it. Helps make it you feel a little bit more honored when you get there. And that is, you weren't riding a wave, you earned your way there.
Definitely. And as we were kind of, going back and forth a little bit before this, that I'm going to be talking about the Republican debate tonight. But do you think that in 2024, running in the same year as President Biden for his reelection campaign will help you or hinder you, or none of the above, just kind of be neutral? What is your viewpoint on that?
So, this will be where I get into a little bit my personal philosophy, and that is I try to worry about what I can control. I cannot control how the Biden reelection goes. I can't control that. I can control how much hard work I do, how organized I am, what our message is, and how much work I'm willing to do to travel. And sometimes, and those type of things. That's what I can control. The stuff about whether there's a wave for me or against me, I can't control that, so I'm not going to worry about
Sounds like Marcus Aurelius or some of the other
it.
Stoics. Yeah.
It certainly is a Marcus Aurelius daily Stoic type of view. Yes.
I like it. Um, so one last thing before I ask about your how to get involved and stuff like that with your campaign. I always ask guests for either a suggestion or recommendation for either something that a book or a basically a leader or somebody that you were inspired by in your life. So is there one thing that you would recommend people check out, or somebody that is kind of like maybe some obscure leader that you looked up to growing
Yeah.
up?
Well, certainly this person is obscure, but I do think Team of Rivals, regarding Doris Goodwin's book regarding Abraham Lincoln, I think is fitting. We have very divisive times right now. Hopefully, it won't come to any of this because I know some people are worried about it. But the nation was literally divided then, and the work he did in just putting together a cabinet to try to keep the country unified, and even when you read his second inaugural, where it was clear that the North was going to win at that point. And he was clearly setting the stage to try to unify the country post victory. And I, I just think that says a lot about him as a human being, but more importantly, him as a political leader. That is, he kept trying even during a literal war.
All right, you guys heard it first. Go get that book. Don't buy it on Amazon. Go get it from your local
Go,
bookstore.
go, go to your local bookstore if you can. Please do.
We have a great one here in Doylestown. So if you're in Doylestown or in Central Bucks, you can come here or wherever.
Yeah.
Peddler's Village. We got plenty of bookstores. Philadelphia. But Eugene, where can people find you on social media, your website, and I guess where can people get involved? The direct question I had somebody asked was, how can people get involved in your campaign since it's so early? I assume you're not like door knocking and canvassing and stuff like that?
Right. So on social media, it's at DePasquale, PA. And I hope it's DePasquale, PA. So I know my spelling is not always the easiest. And on IG or Instagram, it's Eugene_DePasquale. The website is DePasqualeforAG.com. And that's the place if people want to get involved in the campaign. And yes, most of it is now we're trying to set up meet and greets across the state. And it doesn't have to be a fundraiser. It could be a meet and greet where you invite a group of friends. We obviously more the merrier. But that's probably the most relevant thing for people to try to volunteer for now. Certainly, as we get into next year, there'll be petitions and lawn signs and the door knocking and the canvassing as we get into next year. But for the remainder of this year, it's we're obviously trying to raise money, trying to also build an important grassroots network, and also if you can share my contact on Instagram and Twitter with other friends to get more people to follow, it's a way to help me get my message out for free.
100%, 100%. And it helps by sharing these videos too. So if you want
Right.
to share this video or it's tag
Absolutely.
us, we'll be sharing it all over the place. So anything else before we head out tonight, Eugene?
No, I really appreciate your time and thank you for I you know I like podcasts because you can get more into the a free flow discussion. It's not just the sound bite and the 30-second clip, but we can really get after it. And I really appreciate that.
Absolutely. And hey, look, if it comes around general election time, you're always welcome back. I hope you know that.
No, I look forward to being there.
All right. Thank you so much for joining.
Got it, Connor. Have a great rest of the evening. Good
All right.
luck watching the debate.
Thanks. All right, guys. Now we get to dive into some of the nonsense, the malarkey, as some might say, of what the Republican Party is going to go through tonight. And I'm excited. I'm definitely excited to see what is going to happen uh, with this damn presidential election. It is going to be crazy, if you ask me. But what do we got here? I'm just going to check the chat before we move along. Will he uphold potential mask mandates or uphold our freedom? I think that is a fallacious question. The attorney general wasn't enforcing mask mandates. Uh, that was that was not something that the attorney general was doing. And I hope you understand that I was phrasing your questions in a way that was actually uh, a little bit more presentable. Will I understand that you're probably coming at this from a different perspective than me or Eugene or a lot of the audience here, but I respect the questions. And I asked him about Philadelphia as you asked, and I asked him about a few other things as you asked about Biden's approval. So hopefully that is sufficient for your liking. Lindsay said, really enjoy hearing Eugene speak to his experiences in history and policy. Honestly, glad for someone who is both confident and genuine at the same time. I personally, as an auditor myself, as an accountant, which Eugene has a background as a lawyer, but as an auditor, as Auditor General, he's like financial viewpoints of things, which are kind of overlooked except for like budgeting season, are very important. And I think as Jordan pointed out, like his work with the untested rape kits, that is important too. Obviously the dogs is going to be top tier. Protecting puppies and dogs is going to be top tier. And I appreciate it, Will, and I hope you understand how as a progressive, I don't see it the same way as you, and I'm going to ask him a question the way that I might see fit, and we can disagree or we can agree to disagree. And but I think it is a fair question to ask him about Philadelphia. The original way that you had asked the question was a little different, so I wanted to make sure that I came at it in a genuine perspective. So, let us dive into pulling up the. I got to make sure that I make sure everybody that is on the stage. Okay. So, Jameer says, hopefully he can lead some initiatives to get more people interested in becoming an officer. My grandfather was a cop, a Philly cop, and he saved someone from jumping into the Schuylkill River. Hashtag weird and cynical. Um, and Will, that is not how censorship works, my friend. That is that is not censorship. I asked your question. And Jameer, I think I think incentivizing officers is a different question. I don't know that the attorney general has that capability so much as local district attorneys do, but I think the attorney general working with the district attorney, um, that is useful in how to incentivize, train, bring in people that maybe otherwise wouldn't become a cop. And look, Philadelphia is having its challenges, and that's why I think it's a fair question from Will to ask. Now, I don't think that Larry Krasner is a failed DA. I think that the Republicans trying to impeach a DA from Harrisburg, even though he was overwhelmingly elected to this position, is a massive sham, is undemocratic. But when it comes to the police and incentivizing them, uh, we have to provide a better and safer alternative for police, the same way that the police are supposed to make a better and safer world for all of us. So, as Eugene pointed out, addressing the gun problem, both in Philadelphia and, let's be honest, in Pittsburgh. I know that it's a problem out there too, and everywhere in between, because we have school shootings throughout. Addressing that problem alleviates the issue for police. It makes not alleviate it alleviates it completely. Obviously, there are people that could be dangerous with a knife or with their fists, but that is a major way to make the job easier for police. That being said, as well, the police also need to have better training, which yes costs money. So some folks, the idea, the concept of defunding rather than shifting and reallocating money, they're two different things, right? So people want to argue about the phraseology, whatever. My suggestion would be move money, put it into training, put it into programs to do gun buybacks, do things that are empowering the community, hiring people for community policing rather than being a basically like they're roving around like an overseer. I mean, like most it's not the most politically correct way of putting that, but that's kind of how things are in a lot of places where it's like this second class that is being created because of how policing happens in this country. And that's not how we want it to happen. And that's not how I see it in Philadelphia or how I want to see it in Philadelphia or in Pennsylvania in general. So, no one wants to be a cop in Philadelphia. I don't blame them. You don't think the DA is a failure? Have you ever spoke to a Philadelphian, I suppose? A Philly cop? No. I have spoken to Philly cops or former Philly cops, and as you can see from my shirt, I go to school in Philadelphia, so I'm aware of the situation in Philadelphia, and hopefully we make it better. But gun violence is gun violence. Violence is violence, and addressing issues of poverty and gun violence are two separate things, and they impact overall crime in general. But that's another. So let it let. I know the Philly cops hate the DA. I'm aware of that. I'm aware of that. The same way that the New York City cops hate the mayor, even though the mayor is a former cop. That doesn't necessarily mean anything substantive. So, moving into the Republican debate, we have. I want to make sure that I have all these names correct, and we'll go over what I expect of each of them tonight before we end show this week. So we have on the stage tonight Governor Ron DeSantis, North Dakota Governor Doug Burgum, which we'll talk about it. He'll be our first topic here. Former New Jersey Governor Chris Christie, former UN Ambassador and Governor from South Carolina, which is not listed, but Nikki Haley, former Arkansas Governor Asa Hutchinson, or as Trump calls him, Ada Hutchinson, former Vice President Mike Pence, entrepreneur Vivek rhymes with cake Ramaswamy, and Senator Tim Scott. So, what are my predictions for this debate? Well, obviously, for those who didn't pick up in what I just said, Donald Trump, who is leading the primary polls with about between 55 and 65, depending on the poll, of percent of the vote. The poll that they're using in this CBS article says that Trump has 62%. So 62%, and then the rest have the remainder, with the sanctimonious Meatball Run with 16%. That's a gigantic gap. Now, Will, you seem like a Republican, so let me know what you think about this. And this is genuine. I'm not being a jerk. I mean, I am being a little bit of a jerk, but let me know what you think about these candidates. I'm curious. But sanctimonious is not going to get a chance to take a shot at Trump with him on the stage. Trump, let's take the why is Trump not there, and what do I think of that first, and then we'll go into the specifics of each candidate on the stage. Trump is not going to be on the stage because he is making a calculation that it is more beneficial for him to avoid being on the stage and legitimizing other candidates. Him being on the stage brings more attention, brings his audience to watch the debate, to potentially listen to these other candidates that maybe otherwise they wouldn't know who they are, or they wouldn't ever give them a chance. And hopefully there are no Eminem covers. That's probably unlikely, although they might ask Vivek to rap. I mean, maybe. And Will says that he likes Vivek. We will talk about him. And Trump making this calculation. Now, here's what might be a shocker. I actually listened to an interview this morning about it, and it was like a political analyst talking about this, a political strategist, but it was a Democratic political strategist. So I think they're wrong. She was saying that the approach of avoiding the debate provides the platform to the sanctimonious or Vivek or Chris Christie to basically just run roughshod on Trump. However, while that might be the case, I don't personally think that these people going after Trump is going to win the people that support Trump over. So if you have 62%, you have to chip off at least 13%, at least, of Trump support, and then all of the rest consolidate around one candidate to beat him. So him basically delegitimizing the process and saying, you know what, I'm not going. Remember, this is Trump. Trump did this in 2016. I don't know that, I have not heard anybody mention this, but Trump did this back in 2016. He avoided a debate. I don't remember how early it was, but I think it was between him, Marco Rubio, Ted Cruz, and maybe a few others. But Trump, to say he's a good debater is probably an overstatement, but Trump is a good bully. So him using his political weight to kind of toss around and make fun of, let's be honest, Ron DeSantis or Chris Christie or Mike Pence or even Nikki Haley, I think would have been insanely entertaining. But he doesn't gain much out of it. I think the people that have already left Trump won't come back to him in the primary. I think maybe Vivek Ramaswamy's support might be able to be won back to Trump if he were to, drop out and endorse him. That would be like, and this is obviously I'm saying within the primary. They'll all vote for Trump in the general election. And Will, I actually agree with you. I'll talk about that in a sec. I think that Trump is making the smart political decision not to engage with the debate. Now, would I prefer him to debate? Absolutely. I would love to see him drag Ron DeSantis and end his political career, because I think he actually would. I think that might still. So we'll get to that, but I think that Trump gains, he hasn't he I think he doesn't lose anything. And now I'm saying this on the verge of also tomorrow Trump being arrested in Georgia. And he's already been indicted, but tomorrow he surrenders himself and we will get a Donald J. Trump, the quad indicted, the 2 times impeached, failed former president's mugshot, which will be one of the most infamous and popular and internet famous images of all time. It just immediately will become it'll become a meme, it'll become all that stuff. And yes, he is still tied with Biden in the general, but there is a significant portion of undecided voters in those polls. So polls at this point for the general election are somewhat irrelevant. Although no matter what, if it's Trump and Biden, or if it's Trump, if it's Trump and Biden, or if it's DeSantis and Biden, or Harris and Trump, or whoever, 2024 is going to be an extremely close election, no matter what. So the polls are going to be the polls. It doesn't matter what national polls say. It depends on what it polls in state of Georgia, state of Pennsylvania, or the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania, the state of Wisconsin, Arizona, Michigan. Those are the states that are going to boil down to decide the election in 2024. And in 2020, they were decided by just a couple thousand votes. So no matter what the polls say, it's going to be close. So that's what I think about Trump. I think he's actually making a smart political move. Now, whether that's like actually a smart move from his calculations or if it's just like he stepped in shit and got lucky, we'll find out. And I could be wrong. He could be very unlucky. Next, we'll go in like order of people that I think are like less relevant towards the big fish. Ron DeSanctimonious. North Dakota Governor Doug Burgum, who only made the stage because of the way that he was doing donations, because you had to have a certain level of donations. Let me see if this article says, I don't know if it says what they needed to qualify. You needed like a couple 10,000 or 20,000 donors, individual donors, which is a serious amount. Someone like you know, what's crazy to me is that I remember a few years ago someone telling me, there's this guy, Connor, you should check him out. I know you're a progressive, but you should check him out. His name's Larry Elder, and he's like this very well-spoken guy, and he debates leftists and all this stuff. And you would like to, or I would, at the time, the person saying this to me, I would like you to listen to him and see what you have to say about him. And he didn't make it on this. He's running for president, which I actually just found out earlier today or yesterday. He didn't make the debate stage, even though he has it's 40,000 donors. That's what it is. So, and 1% in the polls. So he has not achieved that. But Larry Elder has a very large media presence in the Republican Party. But sorry to sidetrack us there. But Doug Burgum, he is only on the stage because he had some weird way of getting the donations where he would promise people like gift cards or like $20 gift cards for like each $25 donation or something like that. So in the net, he like really wasn't getting that much actual donation money, but he was getting the donations to get on the stage. And people were still like, I was reading about this earlier today. They were trying to figure out if it's even legal. And as of right now, I guess it is because he's going to be on the stage. So that is that's all I know about this guy. And I've never really heard of anything about him before. Then we'll go over to, I'll say that Asa Hutchinson, he's the former Arkansas governor. He was the predecessor of Sarah Huckabee Sanders. Is a, wonderful person. And she's definitely not just destroying public education in Arkansas. Yeah. Asa Hutchinson, same thing. He's got no shot at this. This is like a way for him to sell a book or I don't know, build a bigger platform, I guess, but he got absolutely no shot. And I think that maybe he has to take shots at DeSantis to pick up some points here. But I really don't think that Asa Hutchinson, Tim Scott, I mean, maybe Mike Pence, Nikki Haley, I don't think any of them really are gaining anything from attacking Trump, which is an interesting, I think, perspective or place to have to be in at this. Um, but I think that uh, Mike Pence and Tim Scott and Nikki Haley will take more shots at Trump because they have to, but I also do think that they will punch at DeSantis. I think like overall for all these people, let's just say from Hutchinson, Scott, Ramaswamy, Pence, Haley, and Burgum, DeSantis is going to be the punching bag. And he is a solid punching bag. Christie will maybe punch at DeSantis here and there, but he is going to be going and gunning for Trump. And I personally think that Mike Pence should be going at both of them as well. If I was the advisor, because look, even Mike Pence has no shot at winning. I think all of these people have no shot at winning the nomination. I think that Trump has it locked down. But let's just say that if you were trying to at least build your platform, build some form of serious campaign, you have to go at the top person. But also, if I was Mike Pence, you have to grow a spine. You have to go at the person that allowed his supporters to literally, and he did not call them off. He did not, put out the tweet early enough that literally allowed them to erect a gallows outside of the Capitol trying to hang you. If you cannot call out that person, you deserve to be cast aside completely and just laughed off the stage. You have no real right to be even on the stage or even in the question of being the president. Now, I don't think any of these people really should be the president. That's my opinion. But I don't think Mike Pence should be anywhere near the White House ever again. And Mike Pence has called him out very, very tacitly, called him out very, very lightly in the past. Any times that he's really been talked about January 6th, he's like, well, it was I did what I had to do. That's kind of what he says. We'll go to Christie. Like I said, Chris Christie is the only, I think, out of all of these campaigns. I mean, Tim Scott, and Nikki Haley, they're like more normal people. They're living somewhat in reality. Chris Christie was a Donald Trump bootlicker for 8 years, 7 years, 8 years, basically. Now he's doing the right thing. He's living within some form of reality. So now he's going after Trump. Now, I don't know why. See, our buddy Will in chat thinks that Chris Christie's a bum. Okay. He might be a bum. He was a bum maybe as a New Jersey governor. But as a New Jersey governor, he was a Republican in a blue state. So honestly, his ability to win over the middle is pretty established. Win over these kind of swing voters is pretty established if he's winning in this blue state. I don't agree with that. I don't agree with him. He's somebody that wants to cut Social Security and cut Medicare. He has said so. I don't agree with him politically. But I do think that there's a value for him going after Trump. Now, I would like to see him go after DeSantis personally, because I don't think that what Christie is going to say has any impact on Trump in the general election, for the most part. Going after DeSantis might have some lasting impact on the Republican Party, though. Now, that is something that I hope to see. I don't expect it, but I would hope to see it because he's still like you still have to take off the chunk from whatever DeSantis has left. Okay, Vivek Ramaswamy is the Trump guy on the stage. He will. This is my prediction. He will defend Trump's record through and through. Trump likes him. And he will probably do very well. I've listened. I think that Chris Christie and Vivek Ramaswamy are going to be the two that perform the best in the actual act of the debate. But I think Vivek Ramaswamy will gain the most out of this debate. I think he will knock some points off of all the rest, including Ron DeSantis, and gain in that polling. And I think then it becomes a Trump, Ramaswamy, DeSantis in the top three. I will point out that in New Hampshire, in the state polls, Chris Christie is in second, DeSantis is in third. So if you look at this, you see some shakeups in the state. You see that Ramaswamy moves up. Now, I personally think that Ramaswamy is a liar, and I think that he is somebody that has this suave kind of personality that can get him through interviews, and he is good with the media. He is good at deflecting. He is good at all that the things that you need to do in a debate. So again, that's why I'm saying he is the fill-in. He is the as DeSantis would say, he is the lifeless vessel that is transporting Donald Trump onto the stage. Now, if Donald Trump came onto the stage like it was wrestling, I swear to God, I think that it would be that would also lock down the that would also lock down the nomination. Last but not least is Meatball Run and DeSantis. He is not good under any sort of questioning. He is not good under any sort of pressure. He is good, and I'm saying this with the perspective of saying he is good at being Ron DeSantis, the governor, as Republicans go. Like, in implementing what he wants to, basically, in Florida, because he's not questioned. And when he is, he's basically like, get them out of here. He is, when questioned by the media, weak. He doesn't know how to be personable with anybody. He is not quick on his feet. And I would be curious to see how many times he mentions woke. The woke mind virus. Woke goes to die in Florida. Now he's pivoted like 10 times. But Ron DeSantis, his campaign is on life support. Oh, but Connor, he's got the most out of the rest of the people on the field. Yeah, but he also has spent more money than all of them probably combined. And he's at 16%. Now, the rest of them probably don't have a shot at actually winning. So they're just trying to build something. DeSantis took a shot at something that he thought he could win. And unless Trump literally keels over, DeSantis has no chance. And I still think that even if now, I actually think now that if Trump were to literally kick the bucket, that there's a good chance that someone like Ramaswamy swoops in and wins the nomination. Or somebody that hasn't even announced yet could do that. You never know. Because DeSantis has no likability. I think what happens tonight, and this is something that I kind of agree with maybe, with what the interviewer or the interviewee I heard this morning talking about the Republican debate, was that they were saying now is the time where we will possibly see what a post-Trump Republican Party looks like. Well, I don't think that Trump's going away, and I don't think that Trumpism is going away, and I don't think that Trumpism isn't on the stage. Like I said, Ramaswamy represents the Trump contingent on the stage. Mike Pence was literally the vice president for it. DeSantis is further right than Trump. To say that it is a post-Trump Republican Party would only mean that it is a evolved post-Trump Republican Party, meaning that they just took Trumpism and put it on steroids. Because the only anti, and I'm putting anti, in some light quotes there, the only anti-Trump person on the stage is going to be Chris Christie. And he's at like 3% in the polls. So the MSNBC job, that'll be nice, but until then, he's just got to take shots at Trump and hopefully knock down DeSantis a peg or two. And then Dark Brandon will come in and hopefully win the election in 2024. But we will see. So that is all I have for you tonight. I hope you guys enjoyed the program. If you guys did, you could go and check out Eugene, his campaign, which will be shared in the link below. You can go to his social media or my social media to see where he's at. You can follow me on X or Twitter at Con O'Hanlon. You can follow the show on Facebook, Instagram, and TikTok, Greater Society Media. While you are here watching this video, hit the subscribe button. Even if your name is Will and you're in the chat and you're a Republican, that's okay too. I love you just as much. Hit the thumbs up button. And you guys can help us grow the channel. Support the show on Patreon. Patreon.com/Greater Society Media. You can listen to the show if you would prefer to listen to the show pretty much anywhere you can get your podcasts. So do that because that also helps. And if you are somebody that listens live, if you listen the audio versions, leave a review. That is something that I don't say every week. Leaving a review will also help. So all that being said, 9 o'clock tonight, debate happens. I hope you guys either get some popcorn, maybe enjoy, I don't know, what goes well with Republican. I see, I live for this stuff. These debates are like bring me back to 2016 when there was the Republican and Democratic primaries. Oh man, that was a crazy time. Crazy time. And I would watch every single one. Playing Hearthstone and watching CNN on my computer. Just the election results and the debates. It was wonderful. Yeah, Will says he's going to smoke a joint and watch. I hope you enjoy that, sir. Please, convince the Republican Party to #legalize it. But until then, stay safe. I'll see you guys all next time. Peace.